Welcome to the Disrupt Your Career podcast, brought to you by Claire Harbour
and Antoine Tirard. We're passionate about helping everyone find fulfillment in their work life.
We believe that big, messy, uncharted career changes are inevitable, and it's up to you to decide.
Will you take control and disrupt, or allow yourself to be disrupted?
We wrote the book about it, and now we share here our conversations with other thinkers in this crucial area.
Settle down and get ready to listen to this dose of wisdom.
All right. Well, on this episode of the Disrupt Your Career podcast, I am delighted to be welcoming Octavia Goredema. Octavia is originally from the UK, where she obtained a degree in politics and history, but she spent most of her working life in the LA area. Her career has spanned all kinds of different areas, which we'll dig into in a moment. But most recently, she is a very prominent author of books and audio series on how to make great career pivots. She's actually been awarded an MBE by the late Queen of England and is generally constantly breaking barriers in her work. And I'm really delighted to have you here with me today, Octavia. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much, Claire, for the warm welcome.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So let's start, as we always do, with your own career journey. You yourself have been through several pivots, starting in the PR industry, then media and content, and more recently in a host of roles around career strategy, including coaching, advising, and publishing both paper and audio books. Why don't you share with us how your career has unfolded in this extraordinary way? Talk about the role that design and serendipity have played, and share with us, if you will, your key moments of pride and of challenge.
I love that question, Claire. And I started my career 23 years ago after graduating from the University of Leicester. And when I look back on it, my instinct is to say, oh my goodness, so many accidents and a lot of serendipity, but there also was some intention, of course, at pivotal moments. And even if I didn't really comprehend in those moments that intentionality and the impact of that intentionality, it was still there. But in terms of what I do now as a career coach, as an author, no, I did not know 23 years ago that's what I would be doing. I started my career working in public relations after graduating in politics and economic and social history. For a while, I actually thought I might end up working in politics in some capacity. And my very first role was adjacent to that. I worked in public affairs. So I was a very junior employee at a firm that was handling the communications and lobbying strategy for organizations in the professional services and corporate space. I did a lot of parliamentary monitoring, and that was a direct overlap in terms of some of the work that I had done in university. But from that first job, I went on to make a number of mini pivots and much larger pivots. There's always been a curiosity that underpins all of my work. The common threads have definitely been communication. I can see that now. I was born and raised in the United Kingdom, went to university in the United Kingdom, started my career in London, but I always knew I wanted to work overseas. And after I visited the United States for the first time, I actually set my intentions on New York, ended up 3,000 miles west of there. I now live and work. Well, I'm based in Southern California, but I actually work across the United States from here. But no, I could not have foreseen where my career would take me. But every time there was a decision that had to be made, sometimes it felt like a fork in the road. And you really don't know, should I go left? Should I go right? Should I stay where I am? And I took some left turns and some right turns. But I did always have this underlying wish to become an author. And I say a wish because I didn't actually know if it would become possible. And then about 5 or so years ago, I set that intention that I was going to pursue that no matter what. And that's what I did.
Beautiful. Thank you. Tell me a little bit about the lessons you learned working in PR and media and communications that are still serving you today.
I started a career in public relations accidentally to begin with, and then with intentionality. The accident part was I went to see a career counselor at my university and said, I really want to be a writer, but I don't think I'm good enough. I don't know what to do. And he said to me, have you heard of public relations? And I was like, no, what's that? And he explained to me about what the public relations industry does. And so from that point, I went and thought, okay, let me get an internship. So I got an internship at a PR firm. I was sending faxes with press releases to media outlets and learning about how companies and organizations invest a lot of time, money, and resources in communicating with others in terms of amplifying their brand or their mission, what they do best. And I, in the early years of my career, set out to do that in terms of helping organizations communicate what they do best. Having done that for many years and having moved up the ranks, what I realize is that every single person has that responsibility to do that for themselves. No matter what they do, no matter how senior they are, being visible is so important, even if that's just on your team, whether that's within your department, whether that's within your organization, whether that's within your industry. How we communicate, what we share is so important. And now in my work as a coach, I work, just to give context, predominantly with companies to come in and support their professionals and help them take that next step in their career, or help them acclimate if they've just been promoted and are figuring out how to navigate this new role. So sometimes I might be leading a workshop with 1,000 people. Sometimes I might be working with a C-suite executive one-on-one, or even someone who's in the very early stages of their career and their company has decided that they are a rising star and they want to support their professional development. And no matter the seniority of the person I might be working with, no matter the industry sector, I've coached people who make movies, I've coached data scientists, I've coached astrophysicists, I've coached people in marketing, regardless of the industry. The being visible piece and how you communicate and what you want others to know about you and your skills, and ultimately what you want to be known for in your career is so important. And I never learnt how to do that beyond writing a CV or a resume when you're applying for a job. I never really learnt. How do I communicate who I am and what I do best and what I want to do next, crucially? And so I think those principles, even though I wasn't applying them to myself at all in my career, I was the invisible person who was guiding others on their media relations strategy, events, crisis communications, all of the components, political lobbying, all of the components. But I now, as a step back, realize, oh my goodness, yes, there are tenets to that can apply to anybody, no matter what they do.
Well, it sounds as though realizing that was part of that initial temptation away from the corporate PR world and into this increasingly independent and varied portfolio career. So, you've obviously made big disruptive changes in that and other smaller crossroads, but there are always challenges associated with such moves and transformations. How have you managed those and thrived?
When I made the biggest pivot that I have made to date, which was leaving a career in communications to become a coach and then ultimately an author and all the work that I do now, I didn't really know what was coming. With the benefit of hindsight, I would probably give myself, and I do give to others in my Audible original series on how to change careers, very kind of much more structured, measured advice about how to consider your options. I leapt, in all honesty, Claire. I just leapt. I didn't know necessarily what I was leaping into. I had an inkling that I was going to really enjoy the journey, but I had no idea what it would entail. And so it got to the point where I realized I wasn't honoring my career values. And career values is a concept that I share in my book, Prep, Push, Pivot. And in essence, they're your compass. They are what motivates you, inspires you, what you need to do your best work, what's missing in that equation, what you're ready to let go of, but also what you want to do more of. And it was really that instinct and that drive that was powering me. It's a very scary place to be in because you're not necessarily quite where you want to be yet when you make that decision. You're letting go of certain things to reach for new things. And it's not always neat, that transition. It's often quite messy. Some people might be doing it in a series of steps, and people might be leaping off a cliff like I did, jumping from one thing to the next. But often other people want to put you in a box. They know Octavia as doing X, or they know Claire as doing Y. And that's what you're known for. And they can't see what you want to do next until it's actually tangible. So I would tell people, oh, I'm writing a book. And they'd ask, what's it about? And I'd tell them, they'd be like, when can I get it? And I'm like, I don't know. There wasn't anything to see at the beginning. It was only many years later when there's a physical book that someone can hold in their hand. But I became a writer many years before that final moment. And that analogy applies to almost anything when you're making the shift. There won't be something tangible to necessarily see or for someone to latch onto until much further down the road. And so what I learned, to answer your initial question, was that you have to believe in yourself before anyone else can, even when you don't know perhaps the full landscape that lies ahead of you. You might just see the next step. You have to believe in yourself before others. And eventually you become a magnet for believers, but people have to catch up to that, and they'll catch up to that at different points in your journey.
I love that image. I love it. Beautiful. Big challenge for very early career professionals to get into that thinking, of course. Yes. I mean, you know, you're graduating from university, you're finishing high school, you're moving into your second job. Very difficult indeed to get into that ultimate self-belief that allows you to create something that only becomes visible later. What advice do you have for very early career professionals who are looking to start out?
At the very beginning, and that's not just early in your career, even if you make a change, you're early in that new career as well. There's lots of early stages, not just in terms of at the very, very beginning with your first or second job, but however you are defining your early stage, it can feel incredibly overwhelming. You don't want to put a foot wrong, and you will feel, I don't really know what I'm doing yet. I remember feeling that when I started my first job in public relations. I remember feeling that when I made the pivot to coaching. I remember feeling that even after I signed a book deal. So, oh gosh, okay, I don't know. And so the first thing to do is to know that you're not going to have everything go perfectly, and you're not going to know all the answers, but it's really important to look around you and have career-focused conversations with peers. If you have the opportunity to align with mentors, people who are a year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever tenure ahead of you, that's really valuable. But don't underestimate peers that are walking alongside you. There can be so much that you can learn from one another and ways that you can support one another. So don't be afraid of career-focused conversations. And also try and avoid the trap of comparing yourself to others negatively. And that can be really hard to do.
We're hardwired to compare ourselves.
We are. I mean, how we often measure our own success is by benchmarking against others in terms of titles, or what other people are doing compared to what we're doing, what other people might be earning compared to us, where they are compared to us. And even when we don't intend to, you could open up LinkedIn and suddenly be confronted on your newsfeed with other people's, you know, what can look like incredibly impressive moments. Mm-hmm. You immediately start to think, oh, that's great. Then, gosh, what am I doing? And I encourage anyone, especially if you're in the early stages of what you're doing, is to, instead of measuring yourself against others, track your progress. Compare where you were a year, 5 years ago to where you are now, and also map what you're moving towards. And make it a habit to note down, when they happen, the things that you're proud of. Don't just do it when you have to work on your CV or your resume or update your LinkedIn profile or complete a job application or do your performance review. Make this a consistent habit that you do. Have a document. This is what I do. I have a document that I keep on my desktop right now. It's got the month and the year from right this moment, and I jot things down. At the end of each week, I think about it a little bit more. At the end of each month, whether it's the last calendar day or the first day of the next month, I look at my notes for the month, and guaranteed, even just a few weeks later, there are things that I would have forgotten about if I hadn't written them down in that moment.
Yeah.
I encourage early career professionals to start that habit because you'll start to see patterns. You'll start to see what you're doing. You'll start to see what you're learning, and you'll only be able to connect dots with the benefit of hindsight. So when you're comparing yourself to someone else's major promotion or new project or award, or you'll be forgetting that incremental progress you are making quietly, that matters. So that would be my advice.
Beautiful. Thanks. Let's talk specifically about your book. It's called Prep, Push, Pivot, Essential Career Strategies for Underrepresented Women. Now, you've talked about part of your motivation for writing it, not least the intrinsic motivation of wanting to be a writer. And I'm guessing that much of the rest of the answer is in the title, but nevertheless, what was the motivation to write it, and what need are you trying to address with the book? And finally, what was your process for the writing?
After being coached myself, which was the precursor to me becoming a career coach, and I am still coached to this day.
Of course. Good coaches always are.
I just had such an epiphany about how powerful it is to hold space that is wholly centered on what you as an individual need to support your growth. However you define success, however you choose to define it, holding that space. And I very rarely had held that space for myself. And it was only when there were real milestone moments where you have to make decisions when I would, or maybe at the start of the year when a new year lies ahead of you and you're thinking about what you might want that year to encompass. And so I also recognized that most people don't have the opportunity to work directly with a coach. Coaching is expensive. And even if you have the means, it might not be a resource that you feel is immediately accessible to you. And so in my book, I wanted to provide guidance and coaching-led questions for every possible scenario someone might face in their career. Now, as a Black woman myself, I know how it feels sometimes to be the only woman of color in a meeting or on a team or even in the building. And women of color remain the most underrepresented group in the corporate pipeline, regardless of industry sector. And when you look at the gender pay gap, it can impact women of color so profoundly. It may result in up to $1 million in lost earnings over a lifetime. This is monumental. And so I wanted to create a resource that someone could use as they are navigating their career, especially if they feel like they might be the only in their spheres. And so the prep part is really about laying the foundations for what your career values are and what you're leaning towards. It discusses how to negotiate your salary, how to position yourself for a promotion in the push part, and how to reach for those next steps, and also how to determine if you want to take a step back from your career as well. I'm a parent. I know what it's like to make decisions about how you navigate your career goals while being a caregiver. And then also in the pivot part, of course, there's the navigating transitions, whether that's a large pivot, such as a career change, or maybe it might be a smaller one, but it's still significant to you. And I also discuss the importance of paying it forward, because even as we are looking to our next steps, there will be people that are looking at where we are and would love to have had the experiences that we have had or be in the positions that we are in. And it can be easy to forget that. And I think even as we are looking to advance, it's really important to share and to connect with others and ask others about their career goals, make introductions, recommend events, amplify the work of others. Because when people have done that for me, they may not even remember that now. I remember someone taking the time to give me feedback or share a perspective or give me advice or make a recommendation has been monumental on more occasions than I can. And I still benefit from that. I'm a first-time author, Claire. I'm doing a job for the first time all over again. All of those things are so valuable. And so I wanted to harness all of those things in one place with my book.
One of the notions that you talk about a lot in the book is this idea that knowing your worth is crucial to everything. Can you dig a little more into that?
Yes.
As if we need convincing, but convince us even more.
Yes. Well, I think it's especially important to know your worth when your worth is not being reflected back at you.
Absolutely.
When you are applying for jobs and not even getting perhaps screening interviews, when you've asked for a promotion and the answer is no, when you are doing all the work and all of the things and you're not necessarily being compensated what you should be, when you are not being recognized for your potential. All of these things, often we look to others to validate who we are. And sometimes there's no way around that. If you're looking for a job, you need someone to give you an opportunity. If you're asking for a raise, you need someone to say yes. If you want to do a stretch assignment or a project, you need to have someone who will greenlight that for you. And so when we come up against obstacles, it can be, we're human. We have those moments where we're like, okay, this isn't happening for me. And what I really want people to remember is how important it is to dig deep in those times in between. I mean, you started this episode by sharing my accomplishments. What matters most to me is not all of the accolades, but what happened in between, and the no's that I heard, and the challenges that I faced, and the toxic work environments that I navigated, and the self-doubt, and all of those things, because that is what the real things to be proud of, because it's coming through those situations. And that's why as a coach, I know there's so much that goes into what we do that can often be completely invisible to others. Other people see the highlight reels, whether that's on our resume or, what we share. But there is so much more that goes into that.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. Thank you. In the book, you talk a great deal about values and alignment, and you refer to your own story of somewhat floating around in what others perceived to be a good career while you weren't necessarily really knowing and identifying and understanding your purpose. For our listeners who are looking for help in their careers and their own purpose, could you elaborate on some of the different techniques that you recommend for identifying and communicating career values?
My book opens with a chapter 1, Know Your Worth, and I share around 15 questions that I encourage anyone to ask themselves to really anchor what matters most for you. What do you want to be known for? What motivates and excites you to do your best work? What do you need to do that? Like actually to answer those questions. And if you go to my website, octaviagoredema.com, you can actually start reading that first chapter right away. So you can go and do that at your own pace. And when I'm coaching somebody, I'll ask them questions, but it's often when you go a layer deeper, when you pay attention to the response that you're hearing from someone else or that you're writing down for yourself if you're doing this exercise privately, and asking more and more questions. And pay attention to your responses, and then think about, okay, where do I need help here? What do I need to keep doing? Or what might I need to do differently? And I think a really important question to also ask yourself is, what does success mean to me? Because success means different things to everyone. And what success means to you is unique to you. It might be you want to earn a certain amount, and it might be you want a certain title, but there might be experiences you also want to have. And I want you to ask yourself, what are my non-negotiables when I think about this? What are the things that I must have for my career to be successful, to be able to feel like I'm thriving and enjoying this experience as I'm navigating these next steps? And we can't fully control our work environment, but we can control the decisions that we make and the choices that we choose to embrace for ourselves, and honoring what we know we need. Sometimes you have to take a step sideways or what might feel like a step back. But if it's moving you ultimately in a direction that is important to you, then every step matters. And I often find if I'm coaching someone who is really struggling and unhappy, that there is a misalignment somewhere in their career values. And it's by asking questions. Sometimes they think they instinctively know that misalignment because we spend, 90,000 hours over the course of our career on average at work, right? We invest a lot of time in our work, but there also might be underlying factors that it's really important to examine and recognize.
Let's come back to you. This big shift recently, not only have you become an author of a book that's on paper or on a Kindle, but you've become far more socially visible by becoming the presenter of an Audible book series called How to Change Career. It's being listened to in all kinds of countries and languages. This is absolutely amazing. If you could summarize the best gems in it, what would you tell us? And how would you perhaps distinguish what's in the series as opposed to what's in the rest of your work? And to what extent in this context do you benefit from immediate feedback from listeners?
It's been such a joy to, first of all, think through the content of this series, then to write it and then to narrate it. Oh my goodness, it was just an incredible project and also a very personal project, because in my book, Prep, Push, Pivot, there's a chapter specifically that is devoted to how to make a career pivot. And this series expands even further. And really, I dig much deeper into my own journey, having navigated that, but also in terms of how to think through, once you've decided you want to make a shift, how you create your roadmap for doing that, how you find supporters and advocates, how to navigate the common obstacles that will appear as you are doing this, and then how to continue to dream bigger as you continue to move forward on that path. And it can be incredibly scary to do this at the beginning, but it's so important to speak into existence what you want. Whether you're making a major career change or whether it's a smaller shift or you just want to do more of something, you have to speak this into existence, and you have to get comfortable with talking about what you want to do next, what you're excited about, what you may need. And doing that without an immediate expectation that necessarily the stars might align in that one conversation. But you're planting seeds. And when you plant seeds, you are cultivating something and taking steps, but something will start to grow. And your confidence is the first part of that. And it was really poignant for me to reflect on the journey that I've made in this series. It was really poignant to me to talk about what I learned the hard way from navigating a career change, and also to remember mentoring is important, and talking to others that have walked your path that you are embarking on is important. But also remember, no one knows your journey or what you can do. And you may get advice as you are going that actually isn't the best advice for you.
Good point.
I share a story in the series about Lin-Manuel Miranda, who created Hamilton, the musical, which has been not just a Broadway smash, but has won numerous awards. And when he was developing that project, he was holding down a job as a substitute teacher and writing radio jingles for companies just to make ends meet. And he had a really incredible mentor, Stephen Sondheim, one of the most famed lyricists of all time. And Stephen said to him, I don't think this rap thing is going to work in a musical. Just don't think it's going to work. And Lin-Manuel respectfully disagreed with that part, but, harnessed the other great advice that he received from Stephen. And Stephen subsequently said I was wrong on that one point. And I think you have to also remember that people will have a perception of what you can do from their own lens because that's their perspective. And that can be very helpful at times, but there might be times where you still need to have the courage of your convictions and walk your path.
Absolutely. I think that also points to something that people often ignore in the potential of mentoring relationships, and that is that they can go both ways.
Yes, they absolutely
So, maybe in the moment, Stephen thought he was the absolute authority, but over time, he learned that he had things to learn from Lin-Manuel. And the beauty of that shuttling back and forth in terms of wisdom shared is so powerful and so often ignored or misunderstood or underestimated in terms of the power it has to change us all.
I completely agree. And as a mentee, you have an opportunity to shape and impact your mentor in ways you may not realize, as you just outlined, Claire. And so yes, it's not always linear by any means.
Octavia, what would you like to see organizations doing better when it comes to their input into talent and career management? And do you have any great examples, named or not named, of companies that are doing particularly well in this respect?
I have the privilege of being able to work with a number of fantastic organizations across the United States. And also my work has taken me to Africa and Europe, often virtually, which is one of the beauties of the age that we're in now. When I started my career, I could not even have imagined. I had fax machines that I was sending information out on, and thought being able to communicate the way that we do now and how you and I are even connecting is just so incredible. But I have the utmost admiration for the organizations that walk the walk consistently, who consistently find budget, time, resources to support their people, regardless of seniority, right? I don't want to name names because I think it's very important to be respectful. But I remember, I often have people reach out to me, but I remember a woman reaching out to me. I have some insight into her work just through LinkedIn and can tell that she's doing incredible things at her company. She works at a really large global company. And she came to me and was like, I really want to be coached because I want to do this. I want to take this next step. And I'm like, stick. But have you actually gone and asked your company if they can provide coaching for you, or if they have a budget that you could tap into as a professional development resource? Because she was killing it at work and also doing a lot of extra curricular projects at work to benefit the organization and their employees more broadly. She was a catalyst for so much. She went back, asked, and she was like, I went and spoke to HR and they said they only provide coaching to people who are vice president level or above. Now, how do you get to vice president level?
And be a good one. Yes.
If you have someone who is being proactive and is communicating that there's something they want to do next, or they see a gap in their skills or experience that they want to address, and they want to add value where you work, to dismiss that person completely is just crazy to me. And so I know budgets aren't limitless, and I know resources are not limitless, but I do have the utmost admiration for the companies that don't just wait until someone reaches a certain point to pour into them, but who recognize that they can play such a pivotal part, just even in terms of the motivation and that support at difficult times, not just the times when someone's accelerating, in that growth time. And that pipeline, the most important pipeline for most people who are working in corporations is making that shift to first management. That is huge. And often the people who haven't done that yet are forgotten. And either they have a sponsor, an organization who has taken them under their wing, or someone that is mentoring them officially or unofficially, and then that happens. But what about the people that don't have that? And so I think that is what's really powerful. Don't just look at your bright, shining stars who are on that rapid ascent and who are perhaps really vocal about what they need. Think about the voices that you don't always hear, the people that don't always speak up in meetings, the people that you really want to be pouring into. Some organizations do a career week where they actually open up resources to anybody. And they give people time on their calendars to say, you can opt into things. So there's lots of creative ways that you can pour into people. It doesn't have to be really expensive programs that are geared towards your C-suite or your senior leaders.
Wonderful. I love that. Some of those examples are really excellent and things that could be imitated tomorrow by many of the people who are listening. Fantastic. Thank you. Octavia, as you speak, your eyes light up and it's clear that more or less everything you do is exciting to you, but share with us what other exciting projects you have for the rest of the year or 2024 as we begin to approach that end of the year.
Earlier this year, I set the intention that I wanted to hold space every Sunday to just share some career advice that could be helpful to someone who's sitting there on a Sunday and thinking about their work week as it lies ahead. And so I do that every Sunday. It's completely free. I send out an email where I reflect on either a question that I've received that week in a coaching session or a resource that I know could be helpful. And if that could be helpful to you, please do go to my website, octaviagoredema.com. At the top, you can just click there and you'll start to receive that every Sunday. And it is such a joy to me. I sometimes get emails back from someone who's told me it's helped them as they were navigating their work week. And I love to write. I love to share.
Beautiful. Octavia, it's been an absolute pleasure having you in this podcast today. Thank you so much for sharing so generously and for inspiring, I no doubt, many, many of those who will listen.
Oh, thank you so much, Claire. It's been such a pleasure to be here.
We hope you enjoyed hearing from this month's guest as much as we did.
Do go and check out our work on disrupt-your-career.com and come back soon. Thank you.